Cyberpunk 2077 might become one of the greatest games of all time, and that's because it's being created by the developers of The Witcher 3, a game that won over 70 awards. With a bigger budget and more people expected to work on Cyberpunk compared to The Witcher 3, Cyberpunk is set to break many records and earn even more revenue for CD Projekt. So if you are just as excited as we are, join us as we explore different ways to prepare yourself for this awesome game. Cyberpunk 2077 is an RPG game set in Night City, an open-world metropolis. The game will feature characters that doesn't speak English, meaning that you will have to buy a translator implant if you don't speak the language, and the quality of the translation will depend on how advanced these implants are. As mentioned, the game is made by the developers of the Witcher game series. As you might already know, The Witcher 3 is one of the most critically acclaimed games. It has one of the best storylines, very interesting characters, fun side quests, and combat mechanics that actually works great. Simply an amazing game, and Cyberpunk 2077 is said to be bigger and more ambitious than The Witcher 3. But unlike The Witcher games, which were based on the books, the developers now have more freedom when it comes to creating the game's world. Cyberpunk 2077 is based on the tabletop game Cyberpunk 2020.
Cyberpunk is about that interface between people and technology, but not in that transhumanist way where it's all about technology changing or improving them. It's about how people use things. Cyberpunk isn't about saving humanity, it's about saving yourself.
That person is Michael Pondsmith, the creator of the tabletop RPG. Pondsmith is also involved in Cyberpunk 2077. His involvement in the game is mostly focused on the game's aspect and mechanics. He's also creating another tabletop game that is set to release maybe later alongside Cyberpunk 2020. Cyberpunk 2077 was announced way back in 2012, and then a teaser trailer in 2013 was released, and since then the developers have been asked a lot about the game in articles, interviews, and panels. So that brings us to the question, what can we do to prepare ourselves for this awesome game? So the first thing that we will be doing is playing similar games, but because there aren't many RPG Cyberpunk games, we will have to settle for something similar, but not quite the same. The first game that we have on the list is Observer. Observer is a Cyberpunk game also developed by a Polish company called Blubber Team. The game is set in 2084 Poland. You take control of the main protagonist Daniel Lazarski from a first-person shooter perspective. Daniel is a detective tasked with hacking the target's memories and fears using a device called Dream Eater. You can interact with different objects and engage in dialogue using conversation trees. Observer received generally good reviews and is definitely worth your attention. The second game that we have is Deus Ex Mankind Divided. The game takes place in a cyberpunk dystopian world in 2029. The game is set in a world in which mechanically augmented humans become uncontrollable and lethally violent. The game combines elements of first-person shooter, a role-playing upgrade system, and also dialogue trees. Deus Ex allows you to tackle different situations using a combination of combat, hacking, stealth, and social interactions. Deus Ex Mankind Divided won 5 awards and was nominated for the best role-playing game. That makes it a good game to start if you want to get into the cyberpunk games genre. The third game that we have on the list is Syndicate. Syndicate is also a first-person shooter cyberpunk game, developed by Starbreeze Studios, the people that developed Payday 2 alongside Overkill Software. The game is set in the year 2069. You take control of Miles Kilo. Miles is an agent of one of the world's largest corporations. He has the objective of helping his corporation eliminating other important personnel from rival corporations. EA Games did not consider the game a success, but the team behind it was proud of their work. Syndicate received decent reviews and is definitely worth playing. The fourth game that we have is Dex. Dex is an interesting independent game developed and published by Dreadlocks. In the beginning you might think that this is another beat-em-up old-school game, but trust me, this game is much more. Dex is an open-world, side-scrolling, action role-playing game in a cyberpunk world. The game is set in Harbor Prime, a city controlled by corporations. You follow the story of a woman that is part of an artificial program created by a company called Complex. But that program was shut down by Complex after losing control. If you want a more 2D scrolling experience, this is a very interesting game that is worth playing. The fifth game that we have on the list is Cypher. Now this is a more relaxed game. It's a game you play when you want a more relaxed old school experience. Cypher is a cyberpunk text adventure game. The game consists of you, the player, reading descriptions of the character's locations and surroundings, and then writing your actions into the text parser. If you are into a more relaxed gameplay, this is a game worth your time. The game's writing can be compared to classic movies such as Total Recall and Blade Runner. And that leads us to another way to prepare yourself for Cyberpunk 2077. That way is movies. If you don't have the time to complete a video game, you might have the time to watch some movies. And so we have some Cyberpunk movie recommendations that you might find very interesting. These movies that you can watch before playing Cyberpunk 2077 are Automata. The movie is set in 2044, where robots have two protocols that cannot be changed. They can't harm any form of life, and they may not repair, modify, or alter themselves or other robots in any way. Another movie is Renaissance. This is an animated movie almost entirely in black and white. Set in 2054, the movie is about a French policeman that investigate the kidnapping of a scientist that may hold the secret of eternal life. The next movie is Ghost in a Shell, a science fiction movie where humans are modified with different improvements like strength, vision, and intelligence. And there is Blade Runner 2049, the movie that follows a replicant or a bioengineered human that works for the police department as a Blade Runner, an officer that hunts and retire rogue replicants. And the last movie recommendation we have is Blade Runner: The Final Cut. If you watched or are planning on watching Blade Runner 2049, then you also have to watch Blade Runner: The Final Cut because it's simply a great movie. So are you going to play or watch any of these movies? How are you going to prepare yourself for the awesome game Cyberpunk 2077? Please tell us in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, consider subscribing. Never stop being awesome. Peace.